Many of us have heard the expression, all I've got to do is pay taxes and die. If that's the case, why are so few of us prepared for these inevitable life events? We'll talk about the importance of estate planning and how to get started next on Black Issues Forum.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.
Welcome to Black Issues Forum. I'm Deborah Holt-Noel. As difficult as it is to talk about it, we all must face the fact that one day we'll no longer be here on this earth. And because there's no telling what day that will be, it's a good idea, especially if you will be leaving family or loved ones behind, to have a plan for your estate. However, studies show less than 50% of Americans have a will in place. Today, we're going to find out why it's so important to go ahead and have this documentation in place, regardless of how much or how little you think your assets or financial worth are. To help us with the basics, I'd like to welcome Clemonte Mills, president of Mills Funeral Home in Kinston. We also have Ed Fulbright of Fulbright and Fulbright CPA-PA. Ed is a certified public accountant, professional money coach, and host of the weekly radio show Mastering Your Money, which airs Sunday evenings at 6 on 90.7 FM WNCU Radio.
Great.
Welcome back, and welcome, Clemonte, to Black Issues Forum.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me just start off by asking you, Ed, what is an estate plan?
An estate plan is simply a document. It could be a will. It could be a few other documents, such as a durable power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney. The will, the durable power of attorney, and the healthcare power of attorney are the three documents that I think every person should have, just to be able to be in charge of who can be in charge of your stuff. And of your life, you know, because the durable power of attorney could go into effect because you were in some terrible car accident, you haven't died, you're still alive, but you can't pay your bills. Well, who's going to take care of your business affairs? Or who do you want taking care of your business affairs? Is it your wife? Is it your girlfriend? Is it your brother? Whoever it is. You have to tell somebody what it is, and you have to have these official documents. Otherwise, they have to go to court, and court costs money.
Yes. So you're mentioning the will, the durable power of attorney, and that third element?
A healthcare power of attorney.
A healthcare power
Yes.
of attorney. And we're going to get into a little bit more about exactly what those are. But Clemonte, you are in the funeral business. So a lot of the people who come to you are already dealing with whether or not they have an estate plan in place. What are some of the biggest things that you have witnessed, people coming in and they just need to have those affairs in order?
I'll probably say one of the few things that they normally would have, don't have, is just not knowing where to get started at. That's number one. And not knowing whether or not, if they have, knowing what their family might have had at the time, and they have a lot of questions, and some of these things haven't been discussed, and they're dealing with the death, number one, and now they're dealing with some assets, whether it be a house, car, bank statements, and different things like that, and so they just don't have a plan. And so what we've done at our funeral home, and along with our staff, is just trying to steer them and guide them in the right direction on how to finalize those last few issues.
And a lot of people may not realize just how distracting the emotional aspect of dealing with death can be. And so to actually have something in place way in advance helps to smooth the process. So when they come in there and they have a plan, how easy is it? How much does that make things easier? You have personal experience on this.
It makes it 10 times better than dealing with not having a plan. It gives them peace of mind. knowing that all their affairs are taken care of. And my personal experience, my father passed away in December of last year, day after Christmas. And just knowing that he had that plan in place, it just made my job, my family's dealing with his loss and on top of his business affairs a whole lot easier. Mm-hmm. It was really smooth.
Well, Ed, let's talk about what some of the dangers of not having an estate plan in place are. Some people might feel like, listen, I don't own my home. Right. I don't have any property. I don't have anything, so I'm just going to go ahead on and hope for the best.
Well, that's fine. You can do that, but the state has a plan for you. And when I say the state does, is that basically if you're single, it may not, and nobody's depending upon your income or your lifestyle, that's fine. But if you have children and if you have a spouse, you need to have those documents in place, because what happens is that you leave it up to the state to decide, or you may actually put your spouse in a situation where she's no longer in control, or he is no longer in control. Normally, you know, the spouse can get the child, and that's not a problem. But there becomes other things like if you don't do, the state says that you've got to give 50%, if your parents are still alive, they get 50% of the husband's estate. And it doesn't matter, it's really the spouse's estate. But could you imagine that, let's say there is some money available and the wife gets the first $30,000 or $50,000, depending on whether or not you have kids, and then you have to split the rest. Well, that might not be enough to keep things going the way that the spouse would have wanted it to be.
So it's really a matter of consideration and love as well.
Yes.
And what do folks do who are out there and have property, they're paying for their home and so forth? A lot of folks are acquiring homes later in life and getting into debt later in life, and so they don't want to leave the burden of the mortgage with the children, the burden of the tax with the children. And so what kind of estate planning questions do they need to keep in mind?
Well, the question that I would probably say is that, do you want to leave the house debt-free? Do you want the children to sell it? And how quickly you want them to sell it. Because if there's debt that exists, and regardless of the property, you always got property taxes. You always have insurance if it's a house. Real property like land, you don't need to have insurance on it, but you do have to pay the property taxes. And for some families, like if you have multiple siblings, there's a decision of who's going to pay the property taxes.
I've heard that.
Yeah, you leave a third to everybody that you have. If you have three children, then you know who's going to pay it, and everybody will cry broke, and then you end up having the county take over your property. And I'm not sure that's really what people wanted to have done.
So do you outline that in your will? Who's going to pay these property taxes?
Well, you don't outline it in your will. What you would do is say who owns the property, so that the siblings don't feel mistreated. Because the siblings start arguing over stuff like, oh, well, I paid it last year. Why don't you pay it this year? No, I don't have that money. And, so then typically what I see is one sibling ends up picking up the whole bill. And that's fine. But maybe it might be nice to ask the kids before you pass on, who wants this? And some of them might not say, well, I'd rather have the jewelry versus having this land. I don't care about the land.
Well, that's such a simple solution. Why are there so few people, you think, Clemonte, who have their plans in place? What's happening, do you think?
I think going through experience. Maybe they experienced someone close to them who passed away, that did not plan perfectly. And, experience in life teaches us that, maybe I might want to get my affairs in order. And so those people are more proactive They're proactive about making sure those affairs are taken care of, that everybody behind them don't have to leave that burden behind and paying some of the property taxes that Ed was saying, and there's also different things always constantly changes. Inheritance tax is always different change. So I would just think they always have to stay proactive. Get on your websites. If you have a lawyer or accountant or someone that you can confide to ask about the different changes that's going on, because that's what's going to make you plan better as you go throughout life.
Tell me a little bit about the workshops that you started through Mills Funeral Home, what you provide and how people can take advantage. Yeah, basically what I've done over the last 2 years is basically reaching out to the community, because when people come into our office, it's more on an at-need basis. Someone's died and basically they don't have the know-how or the instruments they need to actually complete a estate. And so basically I started reaching out, just doing some good old-fashioned knocking on the door, some of the churches, and reaching out to the community and forming these meetings. Pretty much we have them pretty much every other month. And with that, we have a lawyer that comes with us. We also sell life insurance. Pre-planning is another thing, funeral planning that we do as well. And just getting people proactive and just having an open discussion like we are right now. Just having a discussion. It's no cost to them. They come. There's no obligation. And basically just getting that information out. And it's been going well. It's been going well. Ed, tell us, what are the first steps? Someone's out there and they're watching the program and they know they don't have a will. And they don't know what the difference between a living will and a will and being the executor and all these terms. Where do they start?
Well, what I would do, I would probably encourage them to go see an attorney. Typically these are documents, but you can also find out a lot of information on the internet. You can do research and just get basic information. You know, a will basically tells who's supposed to receive your property, and the executor is the person that carries out your wishes. Now, you mentioned the living will. And the living will, it basically has it's basically essentially a document that controls how you want to die. Whether you want people to do heroic efforts to keep you alive, or if you're not going to survive, or you're going to be a vegetable to kind of let you go. Those documents are fairly simple. In fact, some of the living wills can be found on state websites that are perfectly legal. I think it's the Secretary of State's website that you can get the healthcare power of attorney and the living will. I think they actually have it built in to the documents, and you can maybe cut down on the cost that you have with the attorney, because you need to have a backup person in addition to the original person that you have as your alternatives or who you want to be in charge.
Got you. An executor and then a backup to
yeah, backup to that executor, because sometimes people don't change wills after people have passed, and then you have to find somebody to take their place.
Now, you've mentioned a healthcare power of attorney, and then a medical directive, and then a living will. So
they could all be combined into one document.
Okay.
Most of the healthcare powers of attorney that I see are usually combined, and the medical directives is inside the healthcare power of attorney. And the living will is also included in there. So you only have one document that you have to deal with, so it makes it simpler. And typically that document, a healthcare power of attorney, you're going to want to give to the people who you want to be in charge, but you also want to make sure your doctors and maybe the hospitals that you would go to would have those documents, so that they're aware of who you want to be in charge and who you want to get your information.
I think, Clemonte, one of the big issues for individuals out there, particularly elderly individuals and African Americans, they get targeted by financial predators when they're at this vulnerable state, and oftentimes mental capacities are under decline too. How would you recommend managing the trust issue that probably a lot of people have when it comes to identifying someone to make those plans with and drop those documents with? Do you all help with that, or do you have any insight on that?
Well, basically, and you're absolutely right. It happens. It's unfortunate that people prey on the elderly whether it be insurance and different things like that. And basically, one of the things that they can do if they question about an insurance agent or some type of financial institute, if it's insurance, they can contact the North Carolina Insurance Commission. Like Ed said, you can find this number online. Or you can look it up in the phone book. I mean, there's a local regional branches right in your area that you can go to, and basically just calling, seeing that company is in good standings in North Carolina to do business, ask some questions, and if they don't, a lot of our clients, they come to us. If they do seek some outside insurance outside of our funeral home, and that's basically what we do. We look at it for them, or you can contact a lawyer. I mean, that's the bottom line of it. If you just don't really know.
So a lawyer would be that legal advisor.
That legal advisor.
And
Sure.
Ed, you actually have a list of different advisors who you recommend as part of the whole estate planning picture. How does that fit in, and who are they?
Well, usually you want an attorney, you want an insurance agent, you want an accountant or financial advisor to be included in that, depending on what your assets are made up of. But you want to have a list of who those people are, because your family may not know these people. Also, if you have a spouse, you want to make sure that spouse has seen those family members, that they're familiar with them, that they don't show up the day of your funeral and that's the first time that they've met them. And so you want the family. In fact, I recommend sometimes that there's a family meeting, that everybody gets together and they have a conversation with these people so that they understand what everybody's roles are, how people feel about them, and whether or not they can, what they'll do in the event of somebody passing. The other thing is that you may want to have a list of who you want your people to call, to let them know that you've passed. That can be a big challenge, that sometimes people aren't notified that you would have wanted notified. And then all of a sudden they're talking to the spouse, and then they find out, oh, the husband passed away. Oh, wow, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah. And so it's a shock.
As a part of estate planning, is the funeral plan, is that a part of estate planning?
Well, I mean, you can put it in your, I would say probably more so in your will. Basically, pre-need planning is basically a client will come in our office, they'll pick out their funeral ahead of time. Because, I mean, I don't know what Ed wants for his birthday, better yet, what do you want for his funeral? I mean, and so...
I might be able to decide that.
And so basically what pre-need planning does, it gives that person that power to actually plan exactly what they want, and it's inflation proof. And that means it will, over the time, if funeral costs will go up as inflation, it's protecting them at that time for tomorrow's needs. That's basically what it is. And a lot of times, I mean, I've had a family come in with a substantial amount of policy, and with that policy, people see the money. Now they want to do the lease for this person. But if you had a pre-need plan, that locks it in, it secures what you wanted, not what somebody else wants to have for your own disposition. Sure.
And how about paying for this, though?
How about paying for it?
Yeah, so someone outright, here's my pre-need, here's what I want for my...
Okay, well basically you pick out your funeral, and whatever amount that comes out to, and you pay for it either a single payment, 2, 3, or 5 to 7 to 10 year plan. And basically from that plan, it'll break down a financial payment premium monthly. So.
Do you find that this is, when people go through the process, it's not what they expected, it's more empowering, and there's actually some relief?
Oh yeah, it's a huge burden. a huge burden off me. I mean, even going through it myself, I mean, even selling these policies and knowing that even though my father had life insurance, but knowing that he had a pre-need, and for one of the funeral directors, who's my cousin, just come out and say, hey, I've taken care of everything, I just need you to sign this. I mean, I didn't have to pick out anything. It was just already taken care of. It was just so easy, peace of mind. That's the main thing.
And I think that's one of the challenges that people run into, is that you only get so many days to make a decision. Yeah. So if you're an indecisive person, you got real problems, because you got to make decisions fairly quickly.
Yeah. I'm laughing because I'd be going back and forth.
Well, you know, I tell people that, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be included in the will as far as what you want with your funeral, but if you write a letter to your family and tell them where your important papers are, and they should go read this, or you give it to them in advance, that's very helpful because you do need to make decisions. You know, do you want, you know, if they were in the military, do you want to have a 21-gun salute? You know, can the family members deal with that 21-gun salute? You know, gunshots at a funeral might not go too well with some people there, but you know, it's all, you make it easier the more that you have it planned out, because you do have to make a lot of decisions. You meet with the funeral director, you meet with the minister, you meet with a variety of people, and then you also have to deal with people who are passing their condolences on to you. And it's just a lot to deal with.
And there's one other kind of document I really wanted you to talk about. It's the trust. And a lot of people are out there really wanting to make sure that they don't burden their loved ones with inheritance tax.
Sure.
And I've heard about trust, but what is it and how does it work?
Okay, well, a trust is simply another document that you do need to make sure that you fund this trust. And you could have a revocable, which that's most of the trusts that are out there, in which that means while you're living you can change it. Or you could have it irrevocable, which you better be darn sure what you have in it, it's the way you want it. But the real question boils down to is you've got to fund it. And what that means is that you have to put something in the name of that trust, like in revocable trusts, where I see the big problem is that a lot of people don't change investment accounts, bank accounts, to have the revocable trust of John and Sally Smith. Or if you want to set up a irrevocable trust, usually that's for insurance policies. Like you want the proceeds to go to this insurance policy and be controlled by XYZ bank or XYZ person to administer these items. The other thing is that these trusts can be very powerful, but they can also be very expensive for people to do. I mean, you could end up paying $1,500 or more for a living trust. But you have to make an amendments to it. So usually, unless people have estates over $1 million, I don't encourage them to get these trusts, or they place a very high value of keeping things secret.
So the trust is a replacement for a will?
Yeah, it can be. Usually when you have a trust, you usually have what's called a pour-over will. What that means is that it just basically says any assets that you miss putting into the trust will go into the trust. So if you missed a bank account, automobile, or even your house, it would end up going into the trust and it would be handled accordingly. And typically for trust, you don't have to probate that. And so that's how probate basically is, where you have to go to the clerk of the court and you have to disclose the assets that you have. That's how people are able to find out information that Johnny had $30,000 in cash and maybe $50,000 in land. They can find out all that stuff. It's public record. They can just go down, look in the files and come up with that information. If you don't want that information to be available to people, that's where a living trust would be effective at. But you do have to make sure you fund it.
So one of the keys, it sounds like, is knowing what some of these terms are,
Yes.
doing some research, getting started
Yes.
at least. And Clemonte, we just have about 20 seconds left here. Okay. Share with us once again how anyone can learn about the workshops that you're offering. And
basically they just contact us at, you can contact us on our website, www.millsfh.com. Our phone number right there, 252-523-1028. And basically give us a call. We list the events on our website, and we normally have them, every other month. And that's one way you can find out.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate both of you coming out, helping to explain
Thank
the basics.
All right.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Ed Fulbright and Clemonte Mills for coming out today. To get information about today's program or watch Black Issues Forum online, find us on the web at video.unctv.org. You can also talk with us on Facebook or leave your comments on the BIF line at 919-549-7167. Be sure to meet us right back here each Sunday morning at 11:30 and Monday afternoons at 5. For Black Issues Forum, I'm Deborah Holt Noel. Thank you for spending your time with us.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.